Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker, formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. When his health failed, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. He then became embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of the Mediza organized crime family, known as Leo. Convinced by his longtime friend Frankie to flee from his commitments to the Mediza family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depended on the kindness of strangers. One stranger, a burqa-wearing doctor known as Fatima, took pity on Isaac and helped him make his way to the mysterious Star X line. At the end of all hope, they found the Star X line and the slim promise that the enigmatic beings behind the Star X could save Isaac from the implants which destroyed his life. What do you do when those who saved you have recorded everything you are? What do you do when your every action is tracked by the Keylogger? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Keylogger, the third installment in the Firmware Pentology by Colbytrax. As for me and the plans for hiding servers all over the city, then it happened. Through the use of CMAs, automated delivery vehicles, and a bit of creative bookkeeping, I had succeeded in hiding 16 servers around the city capable of deploying us at our full godlike level. They had full network access to some of the most powerful switches in the city. As the newly activated AIs would run off their own servers, the only thing which would give away their positions was their own lack of self-control. I expected them to last an hour at the most. Seriously, what had we been thinking? Had we really believed we were capable of taking on the entire city at once? Did we think there were no defenses against us, even though we had, in another life, been a double agent in the war between hackers and sysops? My mood was getting blacker. My reasons to continue on feeling thin and contrived. I felt like I had no direction. I felt no matter how much I babbled on about missions and goals, I would get nowhere. My mind was spiraling in directions I hadn't dared go down in years and shouldn't even be thinking about with so much on the line when I felt a light hand on my arm. "Ishmael," Fatima said softly, "are you okay?" My mind came back to the bench before the fountain across from the Grand Mosque. Fine, I lied. That was always my way. The streets were empty before the doors of the Grand Mosque. The last of the faithful had passed from sight long before Fatima had interrupted my thoughts. "How long have you been here?" "About 10 minutes. You look so intent, I didn't want to interrupt, but—" Fatima broke off. She pulled her headscarf across her mouth and nose. Only her eyes showed, dark and lovely in a sea of orange and brown. She was uncomfortable. Could she be as confused as I? Maybe the hijab wasn't just an affectation of feminine dress for Fatima. Could it be that he needed the barrier of the veil to express himself? For the mind behind the female form before me was male. He definitely looked worried. "But what?" I prodded gently. I tried to smile. Her face. No, his face. But the face was that of a mature woman, secure in her beauty and her faith, not a man. I was becoming mired in a world of male and female pronouns with no way out. I just had to choose one and carry on. Her voice was not the falsetto I had grown used to in the depths of the Amazov catfish farm, where I had first met her. Her voice was musical in its lilt. It was all so confusing. When she spoke, there was worry in the lilt. But then your face grew hard, like you were thinking of how things should be instead of how they are. My father got that look. She trailed off for a moment before resuming. He got that look before he died. They said it was an accident, but I knew. He had that look for a long time, and then one day it was gone. And the next day, so was he. I moved clumsily to comfort her and stop myself. Her eyes tracked my arm with discomfort. Maybe we weren't allowed to touch in V-City. Everybody knew Muslims didn't traditionally approve of public displays of affection. Did I do something wrong? Is it proper for me to touch you? I asked softly, averting my eyes and studying my hands. It wasn't that, she said as she lifted my chin to face her. If it is legal in the city, it is legal here. And contrary to the nest of stereotypes I know you have running around your head, we are as likely to kiss our beloved in public as anyone in the city. A mischievous grin shone through as Fatima relaxed and let her headscarf fall away from her face. No, what bothered me were your shaky movements. How little control you're expressing in your body movements is scary. The only time I have witnessed something so strange was when a quadriplegic patient of mine first visited V-City. I forgot to tell him about the handicapped controls, and even though he loved the feeling of having a healthy body again, he just didn't have the fine muscle control he needed to feel normal. Handicap settings? What do they do? I asked. This would simplify my learning to walk in the V-City. Not just walking, either. There probably was an entire suite of emotes and reactions the system would perform for the user, giving the illusion of a whole body to one who'd forgotten what wholeness felt like. Fatima explained the use and activation of the handicap settings. They were exactly as I initially thought they were. There were controls which ranged from virtual controllers which drove the avatar like a character in an ancient pre-immersive, all the way to adaptive movement smoothing intended for individuals with degenerative nervous system diseases who just wanted to experience V-City without the shakes. I found a combination I could use intuitively and would also provide me with the necessary feedback to learn how to drive a body properly. It might take a while, but I would recreate my sense of proprioception. Once I had my settings where I wanted them, I stood up quickly and did a little spin. From the look on Fatima's face, I knew I had performed the motions perfectly. I proffered my arm to Fatima, and she linked her arm around mine with a girlish giggle. "What now, Isaac?" Fatima asked with a grin. "Ishmael." "That's right. Sorry. You go by Ishmael now." We walked slowly around the square before the Grand Mosque, looking in the windows of the shops at the displays of fashions, ranging from the proper to the profane. "Why is that? I thought it was just an alias." "Remember when you told me a certain conversation needed to be conducted over a pot of tea?" I asked. A frown came across Fatima's face. "I remember. You want to have tea and discuss what happened to me and my family." "No," I answered without forethought. Fatima stiffened and pulled away from me. "When I saw you on the bench, I had hoped you had changed. But you didn't. You're still a boy looking to others to cover your bills." "That's not what I meant," I pleaded. Fatima crossed her arms and gave me a stare I thought only my mother could pull off. "No, I think that is exactly what you meant. You knew I had a soft spot for you. You knew I risked my son's life to save your sorry ass, and you thought I would risk everything to help you." "It isn't like that at all," I stammered. "Yes, it is. Do you know the only difference between you and Leo?" Fatima snapped. I was stunned. How dare she compare me to that beast? Leo was a murderer, kidnapper, pornographer, and God knows what else. I was nothing like Leo. She waited, her withering stare making me feel smaller and smaller with every second that passed. Finally, she spoke. "Leo kills you cleanly. He pulls out his gun and shoots you cleanly. He doesn't leave you to linger in the back alleys, wondering when death would find you or the ones you love. In that way, he is more of a man than you will ever be." I tried to speak, but nothing came out. This was too much too fast. "Do you know what happened to me after you escaped on the Star X?" Fatima waited a second, and when I failed to answer, answered her own question. "Of course you don't. We weren't important to you until you needed us." "What happened?" I croaked. "It's not important. We aren't part of your story. We are just bit characters in the drama of the great magician, Isaac Sarason the Magnificent." Fatima responded with a stamp of her heel. "Can't you just picture the adverts for your show? Come watch the astounding great magician, Isaac Sarason the Magnificent, and his magical Opemapondal as they destroy the lives of everyone they come in contact with." Tears were beginning to run down Fatima's face. I came to her side and enclosed her gently in my arms. I felt her shudder against my chest as she broke into sobs. All I could think to say was a muted, There, everything will be all right. I didn't, Fatima started. You did, and you are right. I have been a monster. I got Frankie killed. I endangered everyone around me, all because I didn't want to look weak. I have destroyed everything I have come in contact with. I will understand if you don't want to talk with me, I said into Fatima's ear as we stood in the shadow of the Grand Mosque. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to me, Fatima said as she stepped back and arranged her scarf about her head. I happened. I came here looking for you without thinking about what you had been through. If I had spent any part of the last 2 days thinking about you instead of feeling sorry for myself and my brothers. Fatima interrupted me with a sharp look. Brothers? I didn't remember you ever mentioning your family before. It's a long story, which I will tell you after you have told me about what happened after I left. We can sit over a pot of tea and share what has happened to us, if that isn't asking for too much, I said with a smile. Not too much at all, Fatima said. Her shoulders were no longer tense, though she wasn't ready to take my arm again. There's a little place just down the street. She led the way, and soon we were settled over a pot of tea on a patio at a quiet little street cafe decorated in the Parisian fashion. I listened as Fatima told me of how Leo had threatened her family after I disappeared on the Star X line, how her wife, already estranged by her revelation that she preferred female attire, was forced to flee with her daughters and youngest son to her sister's place in Cortland, a 3-hour train ride north of the core. She told how her eldest son, Jakob, was forced to switch schools from the affordable city university in Aqua Terra to the much more expensive New York Medical College in Valhalla. David Shakava, Leo's nephew, had beaten Jakob as a very direct message to Fatima that she needed to come out of hiding and bring Isaac Sarason with her. Needless to say, Fatima had no idea where I was, so the only option was to sell her practice and use the money to send her son into exile on the other side of the city. Firmware Keylogger is the third book in the firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins where Firmware Proxy ends, which in turn followed on the heels of Firmware Hijacked. So you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked or Proxy, this would be a great time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 46 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware, Hijacked, Proxy, and Keylogger are all available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, and smashwords.com. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware, Hijacked, Proxy, and soon Keylogger is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the bottom will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Keylogger is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike license. Do what you want with it. Just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you receive this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. I do mostly Twitter, so if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. Thank you once again. Remember to be fabulous and have a wonderful week.